Have you ever seen a concept car and thought,
This thing showed up at the wrong time.
that's pretty much what happened with one of AMC's weirdest ideas from the late 70s, a compact van that promised turbo power, four-wheel drive, and youth appeal at a moment when the company really needed all three. This is the story of the AMC AM van. The video title says it all, the 4x4 van that could have saved AMC. That sounds dramatic, maybe a little exaggerated, and yes, I'm aware that no single concept car magically fixes years of financial stress. Still, when you look at what AMC was trying to do with the AM van, and when you look at what the market embraced just a few years later, it's hard not to wonder how different things might have turned out. So let's talk about the AM van, where it came from, what it was supposed to represent, and why it became the most popular idea AMC showed the public during one of the most uncertain periods in the company's history. By the mid-1970s, American Motors was in a tough spot. The oil crisis of 1973 had reshaped buyer priorities, shrinking interest in large, thirsty vehicles, and pushing fuel economy into the spotlight. Public confidence in smaller, independent automakers had taken a hit, and AMC found itself surrounded by gloomy headlines predicting its downfall. Sales pressure, limited development money, and an image problem all piled up at once. AMC chairman Roy Chapin Jr. saw an opening in that chaos. His belief was simple. Americans would accept smaller vehicles if they still delivered style, comfort, and the right sense of identity. Compact didn't have to mean dull. Efficiency didn't have to mean compromise. AMC just needed a way to prove it. That idea led directly to Concept 80. Concept 80 was AMC's traveling roadshow in 1977, a multi-city press tour designed to put creativity front and center. Think of it as AMC's answer to the grand concept showcases other manufacturers used to stir excitement and steer public conversation. The goal was not subtle. Management wanted better headlines. Designers wanted room to experiment. The press was invited to see what AMC thought the coming decade might look like. Leading the effort was Richard Teague, the man responsible for designs like the AMX, the Javelin, and the Jeep Cherokee. Under his direction, AMC's design department created a lineup of 6 concept vehicles, each exploring a different direction. There were compact hatchbacks that hinted at future small cars, a scaled-down Jeep with clear ties to earlier utility roots, a tiny electric concept with straight-out-of-science fiction styling, a sporty coupe called the Grand Touring, and then there was the AM van. From the start, the AM van stood apart. At a time when minivans barely existed outside of a few early experiments, AMC presented a compact two-door van that looked nothing like a work vehicle and nothing like a family hauler. This thing was short, actually shorter than a Volkswagen Beetle, yet wide, aggressive, and unapologetically styled. It had the face and curves of a pacer stretched into a boxy cargo shape, topped with an enormous amount of glass. The windows alone made a statement. There was glass everywhere, creating a bright cabin feel and offering expansive outward views. Some early versions showed porthole windows. Later appearances featured full side glass. That change likely came from updates made during or shortly after the tour, rather than from multiple separate builds. Either way, nobody could miss it. The AM van wore its intentions on its fiberglass skin. Flares pushed outward over hilariously wide wheels, wrapped in meaty all-terrain tires. Side pipes ran along the body, gleaming and loud in appearance, if not in function. Bold graphics shouted turbo and 4x4. Not hinted, not suggested, shouted. Subtlety clearly stayed home that day. And that was the point. AMC wasn't targeting cautious suburban parents with this design. This was aimed squarely at younger buyers who had fallen in love with custom vans during the 70s. At that moment, custom vanning had exploded into pop culture. Young drivers, priced out of personal luxury cars and wary of muscle car insurance rates, found freedom in cargo vans. Those giant blank sides became rolling canvases for wild artwork. Interiors turned into shag-carpeted lounges. Aftermarket companies rushed in with chandeliers, side pipes, wood paneling, and every possible accessory. Magazines celebrated the trend. Movies leaned into it. Music referenced it. Vans became social spaces on wheels. AMC wanted in, but there was a problem. The company didn't actually build a van suitable for that crowd. Aside from postal vehicles like the FJ3 fleet van, there was nothing in the lineup that could compete visually or culturally. Designers had sketched van ideas earlier in the decade, yet nothing reached production. So, with the AM van, Dick Teague and his team started fresh. True to AMC tradition, the concept was compact. This wasn't a full-size cargo rig. It was tight, short, and city-friendly. Inside, the plan called for 3 seats across the front and cargo space in the rear. The idea focused on space efficiency rather than sheer size. The tall roofline and wide greenhouse helped sell that promise, at least visually. Under the skin, the AM van promised something even bolder. The concept suggested 4-wheel drive and a turbocharged engine, 2 features still considered exotic in the late 70s. AMC wouldn't offer all-wheel drive to buyers until the Eagle arrived in 1980. Turbocharging remained rare outside a few experimental or high-end applications. On paper, that combination sounded wild. In reality, the AM van never backed up those claims mechanically. The vehicle was a styling buck, built with a fiberglass body over a wooden frame. There was no real chassis, no drivetrain, and no working steering. The wheels rolled freely, nothing more. Doors did not function. The interior sat unfinished behind tinted glass. That detail explains a small mystery from years later. When the AM van appeared at auction, interior photos were missing. That wasn't secrecy. There simply wasn't much to show. And yet, none of that mattered during Concept 80. AMC polled attendees at each stop asking which concept resonated most. The results weren't close. The AM van won by a wide margin, pulling in nearly a third of the overall vote. Some counts placed it at 31%, comfortably ahead of the next favorite, the Grand Touring Coupe. People loved it. That reaction said a lot about the mood of the moment. Buyers are ready for something different. Smaller vehicles no longer felt like punishment. 4-wheel drive suggested freedom rather than utility. Vans no longer belonged solely to the livery fleets. The AM van hit those notes visually, even if the hardware never existed. There's irony baked into that success. AMC correctly sensed where tastes were heading, yet lacked the resources to act on it. Development dollars were scarce. The company entered the 80s relying on refreshed versions of existing models like the Spirit and Concord. Concepts stayed concepts. The idea of a production AMC minivan never fully materialized, even during Renault's later ownership. At one point, there was talk of a minivan based on the Renault Espace, a vehicle that would help define the segment overseas. That plan faded before reaching showrooms. Looking back, the timing feels almost cruel. Minivans would soon become household staples. 4-wheel drive would turn into a powerful marketing tool. Compact utility vehicles would dominate suburban driveways. AMC had previewed pieces of that future, then watched others collect the rewards. As for the AM van itself, AMC held onto it after the Concept 80 tour. It remained with the company through the Renault years, eventually leaving AMC's hands around the time Chrysler acquired the brand in the late 80s. The concept landed with collector Joe Bortz, known for preserving significant design studies. Bortz has a history of motorizing non-running concepts, yet the AM van stayed untouched. Over time, he realized that project would never move forward. In 2017, the AM van appeared on eBay with a buy-it-now price of $72,000. It found no buyer. 5 years later, it surfaced again during RM Sotheby's Sandlot's online sale. The auction ended without a winning bid. About a month later, a private deal closed, and the van made its way to a garage in Frankfurt. Throughout all of that, the AM van remained original, unchanged from its 1977 form. Museums took notice. The concept served as a centerpiece at places like the Gilmore Museum and the AMC display at the Kenosha County Historical Society. That preservation matters. This isn't a resto-mod fantasy or a recreated showpiece. It's a snapshot of a moment when AMC tried to shift the conversation. Would the AM van have saved AMC? Realistically, probably not. Financial strain, market forces, and scale challenges ran deep. Still, it feels like AMC had another idea on the table here, something smaller, bolder, and way more aimed at younger buyers, instead of just tweaking what they already had. And maybe that's why it still gets people talking. So before wrapping this up, what about you? Do you think the AM van could have actually changed AMC's fate, or was it always a long shot? Let me know in the comments. The information in this video was gathered from the sources shown on screen. As always, you can find the sources in the Google Doc link in the description. I recommend checking them out for more details. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe and click on the recommended video that appears on the screen. It's all about the Ford Aurora, a rare concept car Ford built back in the 60s. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.